Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eve. Happy birthday to you.
Wish. Okay.
Oh.
Yay! Alright, it's day 2, and that means we're talking about who? Who are we talking about today? Hey. Hey.
Your turn.
Who are we talking about today? Are we talking about Eve? Yeah. So Eve, are you a cute girl? Yeah. Are you a big girl? How old are you? You just turned...
Can you show us on your fingers?
You just turned 7. Yeah, you just had your birthday last week. So, today we're talking about Eve. And Eve is truly not just a ray of sunshine, but a burst of sunshine. She's super energetic, super fun, super sassy, incredibly loving. And
So yeah, I think for that reason, most people are probably already familiar with Eve, but this we can give a little bit more of her story, I guess.
yeah, I think sometimes people comment about how Eve shows up a lot on the videos, and it's because Eve loves to be in front of the camera while some of the other kids are more shy, and also because Eve's funny. You're funny,
and Eve likes to hang out with us, so if you're near us, you're near the camera.
So, if you watched Jude's video already, we started the adoption process for Jude in January of last year, which was 2015. And when we actually prayed about it and decided that Jude was going to be our son, we kind of got a strange answer. And the answer was that, yes, you're supposed to adopt him, but he's not the only one. Which we didn't expect that answer, but we both got it separately. It felt like there's more than just him to bring home. We didn't know if that meant all in that adoption trip or just in the future. So, at that point, we started looking into the option of bringing someone else home with Jude. And that's when we found Daniel. We'll talk about more of that in Daniel's video. And we felt happy with 2, and that was enough. So about that time, or a little bit after we decided to add Daniel to our family, our agency emailed out about a hosting program for the summer, where an orphan would come to your home for a month from China, and you would host them and help advocate for them so that they could find a family. And their odds of being adopted would go way, way up from the likelihood that it was without being hosted. And we were big believers in the hosting program because Daniel had been hosted, and it was a really big blessing to be able to talk to his host family and hear more about that.
Yeah, and the reason why it helps kids to be adopted is because then families can talk to those families who hosted them.
Get better
you get more photos, you get more information, and then a lot of times the family who hosted them will adopt them. So there's a lot of reasons why that helps people or kids get adopted.
So we were really grateful for that program and felt like we should do the same thing. And so I looked at the list of kids that were approved to come and be hosted, and there was a little girl on there with Down syndrome, and she was 5 years old. And of course that was Eve. And I thought, I've always thought I would have a child with Down syndrome. I've been open, to the idea of adopting a child with Down syndrome. Maybe we should host her and then see, I'm not saying we're going to adopt her, but we'll just try hosting her. And that was in February or March. I emailed our agency. They said, unfortunately, she's already been chosen. She's not available. So I said, okay, that was kind of weird. I felt like a connection, but I guess it's not meant to be. A month and a half later, I got another email from our agency saying there are just a few kids left, and if anybody would like to host them, here they are. And Eve was back on the list. And so I called them and said, hey, we originally wanted to host her. And they said, yes, she's had such an interesting story. She's gone through 5 different families saying they were willing to host her, and all of them have had something happen so they couldn't host anymore. And so I said, well, we're in. We'd like to host her. At this point in the process, we were a few months into our adoption process with the 2 boys. And so I didn't think about the implications of that. It was April. She was coming in July. So fast forward.
Was that April?
Mm-hmm. It was when
I thought it was like March or something like that.
I don't know. I think it was April.
Probably.
So fast forward to June. The longer, we were thinking about hosting Eve and seeing her pictures. Her name was Sheen Lee, or is Sheen Lee. That's her Chinese name. The longer we thought about it and saw pictures, the more we thought it's probably pretty likely we'll adopt her, but we don't know for sure. We'll just host her and see. But right before she came, we said to our agency, we're probably going to adopt her, and we'd like to go back for her. And they said, well, if that's the case, she'll be hosted, and then you'll have to wait a year and a half before you get to bring her home, which we felt really uncomfortable with, because sending her back after you've already attached with her for a month in your home, and then she goes back for a year and a half, sounded like that sounded a little bit kind of awful for her, right? It's a long time, and we didn't want to have to start all over. And so we said,
and it would be double the work for us, because there's a whole nother adoption due when you
true.
can, instead of adding her.
And so they said, okay, well, maybe you could add her on, but if that's the case, it was like a Thursday or Friday. They said you have to decide by Monday. And we were like, what? It was terrifying. And Mike and I both have a distinct memory. We went on a walk after I got off the phone with them and told him. And how did you feel about that, Mike?
I was totally against it at the time. I had no, I don't remember exactly why, but we were already adopting two. I just didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was financially possible. I thought it'd be too heavy a burden on our family. There was all sorts of
I think
things.
Mike wasn't being cruel. I think he was playing a good provider and protector role, as dad should, and he was thinking, I think it'd be too much for our family and all of those things. And but it was probably a 15-minute walk, stressful.
Yeah, we had a good discussion.
But by the end, somehow, at some point, something changed in the conversation, and we both knew that we needed to adopt her and leave her parents, and to adopt her on this trip. So that was about a week before she got there. We started the process to bring her home. She came. We couldn't tell her. We couldn't tell any of our friends, because we had to make sure that China would approve us to adopt 3 kids, because that's abnormal. So we hosted her. It was kind of terrible. When she came, knowing Eve now, she was in complete shock. I mean, the time zone change was significant. The jet lag was significant. She spent the first, or most of the time at our home, she was only there for 2 weeks because of a visa issue. She was like a slug on the couch, asleep or just staring.
Or totally avoiding us.
Yeah, like a little squirrel in a ball on our sofa. And she wouldn't feed herself. She wouldn't dress herself. It was kind of scary. Like, what did I get myself into? Am I ready to do this? And I think that really speaks to the fears about Down syndrome adoption in general, is what am I taking on? I think most people have pretty good feelings for people with Down syndrome, because they're typically so loving and happy. But the idea of actually being a parent to one is different, especially when you are choosing that. It's not just something that was given to you from the Lord, but something you're choosing by adopting. We didn't know what we were choosing. We didn't know if we were choosing. I wish that guy was not mowing the lawn over there. Sorry if that's really loud.
It's like, aren't you done yet?
I know. We didn't know if we were choosing to have someone who wouldn't be able to feed themselves or dress themselves or be able to go to the bathroom on their own. We didn't know if we were choosing a child that wasn't going to be able to speak or communicate very well, who was going to be angry, have lots of health issues. We didn't know. But we knew that the Lord was telling us that she was our daughter, so we went forward with that. And when she came, she didn't really give us tons of confidence in her abilities, but she started to open up in the last few days and give us some hope, like, okay, yeah? You want some oranges? That's fine. Okay. So, she went back, which was awful. It was awful. She cried, and as the host was taking her back to the plane, she cried, "Mama, Mama!" We cried. I sobbed. It was awful. We missed her. But luckily, it was only about 3.5 months till we were back in China with her.
Yeah.
But
and to adopt 3 children from China is actually technically against the rules. They don't allow that. So at that point, we hadn't really gotten permission yet, had we?
No, it came just days after she left.
So we weren't
They
even sure.
approved it.
We weren't even sure if they were going to approve it.
I think we felt like, well, the Lord told us that she's our daughter.
Well,
so
I guess we knew
wondered
it
if we'd have to go back.
would
on
work
the
out
trip.
somehow, but we
Yeah.
weren't sure exactly how. So that was stressful as well. So added to it.
Yeah. So then when we went back in country, Mike and I actually split up, and he went to go pick up Daniel, and I went to go pick up Eve, so that we wouldn't be in China as long. And I hoped that she would recognize me and that it wouldn't be too difficult. But
We thought that would be this beautiful reunion.
Yes.
With you and
like
Eve.
maybe she would run into my arms. Not at all. She did not like me. She didn't want to have anything to do with me. She screamed and cried for a long time, till finally I just had to grab her and force her to come with me and, back to the hotel, which she just laid like a slug for a while. And it was really hard because I was alone in that city for a few days with just Eve hating me.
Like sitting on the other side of the room, like
Yeah, like she wouldn't look at me. She
didn't
hated
want
me.
even want
I was really only like a day and a half like that, and then she started to warm up and kind of remember me again, and then it was okay.
Well, and I was in this other city, and that Megan was calling me. Like, I think you were crying
Yeah,
because you were like, "She doesn't love me. Is she gonna love me?" And
I didn't know if she would
you
ever
were so.
love me.
It was pretty traumatic. I think it was more traumatic for you than it was for her. So, but then again, that's kind of typical for an adoption situation. And I guess we'll talk about it with the other kids, but people think when we go to adopt a child in any situation that they're just going to run to you and be so thankful for you taking them, like kind of like an Annie sort of story. But the reality is that most children who are adopted, it's a scary thing for them to do. It's something that's completely new and they don't know what's going on.
Well,
and
yeah.
Not to mention all the trauma they've had before. So it isn't typically this kind of picture perfect situation. Usually the child is unhappy, crying and worse sometimes. So not that we should want to scare anyone out of adoption, but you should understand that it's hard for the child. It's not like they recognize you as their savior right out of the gate.
Well, and this child's been powerless their entire lives. They are not in control of their life, and they're aware of that. And sometimes people are there to take care of them, but sometimes they're not. And so when you come in, a very strange-looking person who smells different and speaks different and looks different than them, and you take them from everything that's familiar to them, even if they're not happy, they don't.
In that situation.
Yeah, even if they're not happy in the orphanage, they don't have a concept of what's happening, and so that's another story. Maybe we'll talk about adoption on another thing. But anyhow, once Eve came home, everything changed. She opened up.
Well, it took her, again, same situation when we came home. It was 4 or 5 days of her sleeping and
Oh yeah,
being
I forgot.
pretty unresponsive.
She was awful.
Yeah,
it was
really hard.
she would sleep all day, and then at night she would just kind of be wandering around the house. And
Yeah.
we wouldn't know, and then we'd wake up, and she'd go
around and wake
banging
people
on
up.
people's doors and turning their lights on. Oh my gosh, I forgot, that was so hard. But she figured it out.
Yeah,
And now
everybody normalized.
she sleeps through the night and everything. I want to talk a minute about Down syndrome, though, in case you just wonder about Down syndrome or about Down syndrome adoption specifically. First of all, I'm just going to say really quickly that it's Down syndrome, and typically the Down syndrome community doesn't like it when you call a child with Down syndrome Downs.
Or having downs.
Or having Downs. It's Down. No, there's no S on Down. So it just, for some reason, it's not how you call people with Down syndrome. You can say DS if you want, or just Down syndrome. But some things that I didn't know. Sometimes when we think of Down syndrome, we just think of someone who has a very low IQ. And in some areas of Eve's life, she does have a hard time comprehending things. But I never have felt that Eve was dumb or unintelligent. Because her IQ is very high in other places. Her ability to assimilate into our family and understand our schedule and understand how we do things and understand what the relationships are was very quick.
Well, also like social cues, or
Yes.
she knows if she knows, she's very aware of what's going on.
And then I felt like it was easier to communicate with Eve than it was with Daniel, who's 14 and doesn't have DS and is intelligent. She just is able to. She's really good at communicating through body language, and she just kind of got the gist of what we were trying to say to her all the time. Where she struggles, and where typically a person with Down syndrome struggles, is in her short-term memory. So sometimes we'll say, like, no, we're not going to do that. This is how we do it. And it will take us months to finally be like, Eve. And then she finally gets it. And so because she's also stubborn. And I think that's pretty typical too. And that probably does have to do with short-term memory. But once she gets it, she gets it. And she is learning to speak English a little more slowly because a Down syndrome person has a different shaped mouth and their muscle tone is different in their mouth, so it's a little harder. They don't have bigger tongues. It's their mouths are smaller, and so their tongue doesn't have as much space, and their muscles don't hold it in as well.
So it protrudes, you know.
But that being said, she understands everything we say to her, and most of the time we understand exactly what she's trying to say to us because she's so good at body language and grunting and pointing and using her face to express things. She's excellent at that.
Yeah. And we have done some speech therapy with her.
And we will continue
on
to do
this
that when
trip.
she gets
We're a
home.
little bit limited on our ability to do that, but yeah. So with speech therapy, she does have words now, and so she's capable of doing that. Just will take some work to do that.
Yep. So Eve is a great big sister. She tries really hard to take care of Jude, even though he hates it a lot of the time. She is such a loving little sister. We've seen her really make the family more cohesive. Definitely Eve's gift, and many people with Down syndrome's gift, is she's so willing to be emotionally vulnerable to people that she meets, which makes her so easy to love. And she also brings out the loving. Are you all done? Oh, was that yummy? Her gift is to come into a room and you can see it. People have kind of a mask up or a wall up, and she breaks right through that and makes people happy and open. And I don't know what better gift a human can have. I think the world, I think I can't express how unfortunate it is that so many of these children are not kept, are when women find out they're pregnant with a Down syndrome child, most of the time they do not keep that pregnancy, they end that pregnancy. And I can't tell you how unfortunate that is, because in a world full of anger and strife and division, there's no better personality than someone, I mean, or I guess I should say their gifts are sorely needed in this world. And I don't know the exact figures, but they say it's about 90% in the United States of Down syndrome babies are aborted. It's kind of a downer to talk about that in Eve's video, but I do feel passionate that Eve is a gift to this world, and she makes all of us better people.
Definitely.
Sometimes she drives us crazy with her stubbornness, but she also opens our hearts up and charms and softens everybody in her world. We've seen that happen with her siblings. She's definitely made all of our kids softer, kinder people because she's so loving.
Well, and she's loving to anyone. She'll walk in a room and go over and give someone a hug and say hi to people and wave at them, and people respond to Eve. Just, I don't know, she has something that draws them into her. So
I'll also say we were terrified to adopt Eve. She's been one of our easiest adoptions. She has her challenges, but all of our kids have their own set of challenges, and I don't feel like hers is any more than any of the rest of them. Now we definitely are going to be more involved in her life than our other kids for the rest of our life, but we don't mind that.
Yeah,
we come to terms with that.
We've worked that out.
We feel totally fine doing that. Eve, are you so smart? Yeah. When Eve first came home and I would tell her that she was smart in Chinese, she would get really upset at that, and I think it's because she never felt very smart, and she slowly accepted the idea that she might be smart. And she is. She's a smart girl. Huh. So, that's Eve's story. She's being a little embarrassed right now.
Yeah, usually she loves in front of the camera, but when we want her to, she kind of gets shy.
So, Eve, will you tell everybody goodbye? Tell them goodbye.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say, I love you.
I love.
Okay, we love you, Eve. I'm lucky to be your mommy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.